Hi, good morning. This is Fred from Out of Box Wealth. Hope you're having a blessed day, happy day, and you and your family are doing well. And we're thinking in the realm of energy and the idea of energy and where the consciousness goes, the energy flows or energy follows. And when we think energetically and we think about ourselves and how our energy is actually moving and what it's doing and what it's creating. There's a lot of really cool questions that come up, and it's really cool because for ages upon ages, wise men, sages, shamans, prophets, teachers, avatars, they've all asked pretty much the same questions. And the really cool thing is that these questions are so effective and they work so well. And they really still get to, I don't want to say the root of the problem, but maybe we could say like the root of who we are. And when we find out who we truly are, then we usually become aware of a couple of different problems. And when we become aware of problems and we understand that where the consciousness goes, the energy flows, we can either disconnect from creating something that was not desirable or beneficial and either allow that energy to nurture us and strengthen us, and for some maybe heal. And for a lot of different ideas, and especially for energy medicine, that has shown us that dis-ease is caused by blockages of energy flow, and simply understanding those blockages and understanding what they are, and having a personal working knowledge. And in our system, in our school system, we really just have the idea of learn what we know, or learn what we need to know to pass a test, and then basically we forget it and then we move on and do something else. But when it comes to our own self and it comes to our own being, having a working knowledge, which is wisdom and which is understanding, is so powerful and so beneficial to ourselves. And so when we ask ourselves questions, it's very powerful because we can get to the root of what we're really supporting and what we're really manifesting. We can get ourselves a really strong awareness of cause and effect. And some of these ancient questions are very effective in allowing this to happen in ourselves. One statement that I love that the philosophers would tell young initiates is Gnothi Seutan, which means know yourself. And then another question is, who are you? Who actually are you? And in our society, a lot of people would say, well, I'm a mechanic, or I'm a manager, or I'm a doctor, or I'm a physical therapist. We think that we are whatever we're doing for an occupation, and we think that's who we are. If you watch the movie Anger Management, there was a actually a pretty cool scene where Jack Nicholson and Adam Sandler were in a situation where Jack Nicholson kept asking him, who are you? Who are you? And that's where he was getting to. He was getting to the root of, well, who are you truly? Who are we? And when we ask that question, who are we can discover that there may be a couple of different identities going on at the same time. And I don't think there's anything unhealthy about that. And, of course, movies and, drama, because it's only drama that sells, it's only drama that makes money. And we have to realize that people who are in the movie business are in it to make money. They're not in it to educate people. So a lot of the understandings around having, maybe a couple of different identities is always taken to the extreme, or, taken to the unhealthy. And, but, you can think that, you have your own true authentic self. That's who you were on day one, and then there's influences around you. And it's easy to see, like people may act different around different people, like children may act different around their parents than they do an aunt or an uncle, or that they do around a grandparent. And so what we see is that to this day we may find that there are different areas of ourselves that are governed by different parameters, they're governed by different understandings, but they're not really our true self. And a lot of times we may be thinking that we need to act a certain way, or we need to do a certain thing, or we need to respond a certain way, just so we will just not disappoint someone, or so that we won't maybe even irritate someone or disturb someone. And then what that causes is it causes us to not necessarily be our authentic self. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that we just go around, without control and without consideration and just say whatever we want to say, or, do whatever we feel like doing at the moment. Of course, there's a maturity, and that's the maturity that comes in blending our authentic self with our experienced self, our self that has experience in the material world, and hopefully coming to a place of recognizing and asking ourselves the question, well, who are we? And then blending the two into a harmonious self that is able to basically act and operate in the material world and be creatively positive in all that we do. And that's what's really cool about it. It's so interesting about asking ourselves these questions, and because there can be a lot of misunderstanding. I know psychologists say that like a majority of the extreme things that we think we remember from childhood are really just things that we imagine and add to the situation, which may have been a traumatic situation, but we kind of twist it and spin it a little bit, even in our own feelings and our own emotions. And again, rightly so, that happens because we misunderstand. We think people mean some things, and they necessarily don't. My wife and I were talking the other day about someone, and this person had a teacher that said something to him, and it created a negative effect. It created a snowball effect in his life, and created negative situations and negative experiences. And then another person came and basically said the same thing, and it created something positive. So it's true that somebody can make a statement and we can just take it the wrong way, and that's human. That's who we are. Because sometimes we don't want to hear. we don't want to hear, what somebody may be giving us good advice, or they may be giving us constructive advice or constructive criticism, but we just really don't feel like hearing that at the moment. And we've all certainly been there. And so that can happen, in our own psyche and our own consciousness. And what it can do is it can create an identity. And when it creates an identity, especially in something that maybe we desired or we wanted, and we just came to the conclusion that, that's never going to happen for us, we're never going to be able to do that, and we may give up on something that really only didn't manifest because, we gave up, because we stopped trying, because, again, we told ourselves, who am I? People tell themselves that they are somebody who had maybe a certain negative experience, and they could label themselves according to that negative experience. And we have that in all different types of negative experiences, whether it be emotional experiences, diseases, times of sicknesses, all different things that are quite traumatic. And then we have the tendency sometimes to label ourselves based on those traumatic experiences. But when the truth of the matter comes to light and we ask ourselves who we are, we recognize that we're none of that. That's just something that we experienced. That's just something that we witnessed. And that, I believe, is the true purpose of our experience here in the earth realm, is to recognize cause and effect and to see how it works, and to recognize and to understand that we can get stuck in those cause and effects. We can get stuck in a loop of cause and effect. And when we recognize how much time can be lost, how damaging it and hurtful it can be, and just how destructive a negative pattern can be in our lives, of course nobody wants that. There isn't anyone who wants that for themselves or anybody else. And when we recognize that, especially for people who have been in the military, and they've had the experience of the chain of command. And the chain of command is, well, you're just a little, you're a private, you're a low person, and you can't have access to the person who's on top. You have to go through all these people. And sometimes, that war machine concept that is pretty much responsible for just about all of the destruction that we're experiencing on our planet, for species going extinct, to the environmental pollution, they're pretty much all the product of the war machine. And when we realize that that is what's going on, and we recognize, hey, that's not who I am. I don't want any of that. I don't want war. I don't want destruction. I don't want any type of negative things or harmful things happening in the world. And everybody is that way. There are very, very few people, and you might find that those very few people could be at the top of those chains of command. And so you recognize that the vast majority of people truly want nothing to do with anything like that. And then when we couple that together with the Maharishi effect, which is such a wonderful, wonderful concept that they've discovered that it only requires the square root of 1% of the population to change the emotional condition of the entire population. And when we recognize that and we realize that and we understand that the vast majority of everybody just simply wants to live a happy, peaceful life. They want to just enjoy their life. They just want to have a peaceful, joyful experience for themselves and with their family. And that the overwhelming majority of human beings, that's what they want. And we recognize that we have already got way over the 1% that is required to transform the whole entire world. So when we know that, and when we understand that, and we can feel that, and we can resonate with that, everything else that is opposed to that we know is simply an illusion and simply not true, and nothing that we have to even be energetically connected to in any way, shape, or form. So when we ask ourselves, who am I? Who am I really? Well, I'm a spirit, I have a soul, and I live in a body. When we start to look at ourselves and we start to look at our environment, we start to look at our neighbor that way, when we start to look at the human race that way, it is such a wonderful empowerment to be able to share with all of creation. And I personally believe to be able to restore our earth once again to the original garden paradise that it was created to be. So love, peace, blessing, abundance, prosperity, health unto you and to your family in absolutely all ways, exponentially. Shalom, shalom, namaste.